Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Facebook Live session for January 2024 at the Alzheimer's Association here in Northern California and Northern Nevada. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Edgerly, Executive Director for the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm so excited to have the fabulous Dr. Josette Rivera here as our guest. Dr. Rivera is a professor of medicine and a clinical educator in the UCSF Division of Geriatrics. She is a kindred spirit in our world. She's very active in the Dementia Care Aware project that we're doing with UCSF. And Josette, thank you so much for joining us here today. Tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you came to be a geriatrician at UCSF.
Oh, Elizabeth, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be here with you in the new year. So I am a geriatrician and palliative medicine physician at the University of California, San Francisco. And my clinical practice is entirely making house calls to homebound
Wow.
older adults in San Francisco.
Mm.
But I spend most of my time doing education and developing education and training for primary care health systems throughout Northern California through a variety of state and federal funded initiatives. And I've been at UCSF since 2008. I
Wow.
absolutely love what I do. I love caring for older adults. I love thinking about how to improve our care for them. And yeah, it's been a long journey to become a geriatrics physician, but it's been so worth it and such a pleasure to be able to work with people like you, Elizabeth.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here. The idea of you doing home visits for these patients who need your care, I mean, I'm sure that everybody listening would be like, oh, I want Dr. Rivera to come to my house and care for my mom, thinking of how much of a difference you're making in people's lives. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And again, I'm so glad you're here today. We are as at our last session, actually, we talked about what are 5 things we learned in 2023. And man, oh man, was 23 a gangbuster year in the world of Alzheimer's. There are new treatments emerging, blood tests looking really good, amyloid imaging covered by Medicare, all these great things. And yet we still have a lot of work to do. I know you see this every day in your practice.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we wanted to think about, okay, so for 2024, what can we all be doing to reduce our risk of getting Alzheimer's or another type of dementia? Essentially, what can we do to preserve our brain health as we get older? And we know there's a lot around heart health and brain health, but there's some other things we can be doing too. So we thought we'd spend today's session together. Dr. Rivera and I will go back and forth and share the top 10 healthy habits for you. But before I do that, Dr. Rivera, did you set a New Year's resolution for yourself?
I actually did. And my New Year's resolution is to move more, to be more active. And the way I hope to do that is just by walking more. I'm fortunate enough to live in a place where there's lots of walking and hiking. And all I need to do is get outside. And so I've got a Fitbit watch to count my steps. And I just thinking about creative ways to take breaks during the workday or to take meetings, with my earbuds, AirPods on and things like that. So how do I creatively incorporate some more movement into my workday? I'm really
Awesome.
excited to try that.
That's great. I kind of have the same one, and I'm trying to watch what I'm eating to maybe lose a little of the weight from 2023. And you'll see these things are on our list too. So
That's right.
let's dive in. We've got some slides prepared for everybody. And so the number one, the first, these are not in order, by the way, of the impact on risk reduction. So just because it's number one doesn't mean it's the most important thing. In fact, some of the ones later on, I bet you and I would agree, if you could only do one thing, it might be later on the list. But let's pull up the first thing that we can do to potentially reduce our risk of some type of dementia or increase the likelihood of having positive brain health. So there are things we can do every day that can make a difference. They can improve our brain health, or conversely, adversely impact our brain health. And so what we're sharing with you is hot off the presses, the newly revised list of what research supports we can all be doing to maintain a healthy brain for as long as possible. So the first one is to keep your brain active and challenged. So you think about, when's the last time you really challenged your brain? And I like to think of this as where you may have had this experience where it feels like puffs of smoke are coming out of your ears. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So for some people, it's learning a new language or solving a challenging puzzle. I remember, Josette, we were doing some renovations at our house, and I had to figure out how to do a miter cut. And so it's like geography and angles, and man, oh man, I
Oh
swear
my
you would have
gosh.
actually seen the smoke coming out of my ears. I don't know how successful I was. It's pretty successful, but that's the kind of thing. Think about what you can do, be curious, learn some new things, solve some problems, and see if you can get a little puff of smoke coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And next up, Josette, what's the next one?
Well, let me just add on to that, keeping
Oh,
your
yeah.
mind challenged. I know that Wordle, the New York
Mm,
Times Wordle, and the spelling bee are what a lot of
oh,
our patients are working on, just for fun. And they really just sort of keep the language and the problem solving and your attention. So it works all of these different domains of your brain all at one time. So anything you do in that regard is really helpful.
I love Wordle and the spelling bee. I actually have dreamt about the spelling bee. I was trying to get all the words. I don't think I will ever get all the words, but I was trying. That's a
Oh, I
great one.
know. It takes me all day. I have to come back to it. And some people just get it done so quickly.
Yeah,
I admire
no
that
way.
because yeah, that is some skill. So staying in school, yes. So education absolutely reduces the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. And so therefore it makes sense to encourage our young people to stay in school and pursue the highest level of training they possibly can. But for those of us who are already into adulthood or well into adulthood, continuing your own education is just as important. And again, it kind of dovetails with the number one point about keeping your mind challenged.
Hmm.
So there are all different ways you can do this. Our local libraries offer lots of talks and opportunities and trainings on everything from how to use the internet and digital literacy to current events or history courses. The libraries are such incredibly rich resources. And the other one I'd like to highlight that's really active in my area where I live is the community center. The community center does charge, some pretty nominal fees, but they offer all kinds of field trips, movement
Nice.
classes, educational opportunities. So lots of things to be interactive with other people as well. So you're
Oh,
sort of
great.
being social and all of those things. All of those things offer social opportunities as well, opportunities to make new friends and meet new people. Those all dovetail in keeping your mind challenged and staying curious and developing yourself.
Love it. Those are awesome. I ended up doing, for the first time, a course that was on Audible. I have a subscription, and I'm not using it enough. So I thought, what am I going to do? And it's amazing what you can find, either free, as you said, through the library, or if you have a subscription to something like that, you can learn. I learned all about the year 1215. And believe it or not, I highly recommend it. It's fascinating. It's a year that changed the world. So
Oh my goodness.
I thought, this is something different. I wouldn't normally be drawn to that. I'm going to do something different. So
Good
that's a
for you.
great one.
Absolutely.
The next one, Josette, is actually your New Year's resolution. It is to get moving, get those steps, right?
Mhm.
Now, so what we're talking about here is regular exercise and activities that raise your heart rate and increase blood flow to the brain and body. So, we can actually think about this in two categories. There's the walking. Sometimes, often that can raise your heart rate. But if you're like me and you have a very elderly, slow dog that you're walking, it's more of a,
Mm,
very slow. So pay attention to, if you are walking, are you getting your heart rate up a little bit? It doesn't have to be the highest level, but think about what can you do that'll maybe take the stairs I'm in an office today, and I used to do this more than I do now. I would walk 2 flights of stairs to the bathroom on the top floor instead of taking the easy way, which was the bathroom on the first floor.
mhm,
That's the kind of thing that if you weave that in little ways, you can actually experience some really positive outcomes. So the U.S. Pointer study is taking place now, and a lot of what we're talking about is being researched in the U.S. Pointer study. One of the key things is exercise, and they're talking about aerobic exercise too. So
mhm,
really getting your heart rate
mhm,
going for at
mhm.
least 45 minutes, 3 times a week.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Exercise is really the fountain of youth, the only fountain of
it
youth
is.
that we have. And it's
Mhm.
not just good for your brain, it's good for your heart. It's
Yeah.
good for pretty much every part of your
And it makes
body.
you look good.
Makes you glow.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's like if you work out in the morning and you look in the mirror, you're like, oh my goodness.
Right, it's
So
better than any serum.
yeah, yeah, it is. It would be probably the most valuable drug ever. If
Yes.
we could package this as a drug,
Oh,
we'd be able to do whatever we want to help the world be a better place, right?
absolutely.
So
Yep.
let's do it. So next up, Josette,
Yeah.
what's
And
number 4?
number 4 is protecting your head.
Mm-hmm.
And this is obvious in some ways, to wear helmets to prevent injury to your head while you're doing activities like biking or playing sports. Nowadays,
Yeah.
where I live, a lot of people are using the new e-bikes, which
Oh,
to me kind of look like mini motorcycles. So
yeah.
really being mindful to always put your helmet on in any activity where there might be a chance of impact or a fall and injury to your head. Um, all of those things can add up. Chronic head injuries or even a bad acute injury can add up and put you at risk for cognitive impairment later on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other thing I would say that's sort of related to wearing protective headwear is to think about how sort of practicing how you might fall. So this might be relevant to people who are a little bit more have challenges in balance or gait, but being able to fall and knowing how to fall, not
Mm.
properly, but in the best way possible, can
Oh,
mitigate head injury as well as broken bones. So really knowing how to, use your hands and arms to soften the impact of a fall and working on your balance. Your balance is key to fall prevention. So fall prevention, working on balance, and then wearing protective headgear in any activities where there might be a risk of fall or head injury is really
awesome.
important.
And your example was a good one. It made me think about the e-bikes, and I think about this with the scooters and e-bikes and all that. They don't come with helmets.
No,
So you have to plan ahead.
yeah,
And so I think that's a really good one, that it's worth planning ahead. It's
absolutely.
worth wearing your seatbelt in the back seat of a taxi or an Uber, because I think sometimes we just are like, well, it's okay. And yet it,
You
it
never
could be
know.
devastating. Yeah.
Yep, you never know. So the next tip is around
Mm,
being smoke free.
yeah.
So, quitting smoking can reduce your risk of cognitive decline back to levels similar to those who have not smoked. So, it's
Wow.
never too late to stop. Don't assume that damage has been done and it is irreversible.
Hmm.
If you quit, you can have tremendous benefits to your brain and to your lungs. So, it's never too late to stop. And again, the similarities between your brain and your heart come into play here because
Mm.
you can reverse the damage of smoking so quickly within a
Wow.
week, within a month, and long term when you stop smoking. And that absolutely benefits your heart, your blood vessels, and your brain.
I love it. It's never too late.
Never too
That's
late.
really important to emphasize, because I could see it is hard to quit smoking. It is hard. It's hard to do some of these things that we're talking about. And so we do want to emphasize, whatever you can do, it makes a difference. Um, so go for it. That's a great one. So
Mhm.
next up is around controlling your blood pressure. Now, this has really featured prominently in science around risk reduction. Is we're seeing just how important our blood pressure is, and so certainly high blood pressure is something that can raise the risk for cognitive impairment in later life. But in the research, there was a study called the Sprint Mind study. They even found that people who had levels of, say, 135 over 90 had increased risk. Dr. Rivera, this actually took me aback because I'm one of those people where it's often I'll be a little elevated even though I'm getting treatment. And so I had to really think about this and talk to my doctor, like, is this good enough or should I do more? And so one of the things that we really encourage everybody to do is talk to your doctor about it. See, are you doing what you can around diet and exercise? I know salt can be a factor. I was told to knock off the coffee. She said, my doctor was like, just 1 cup of coffee. You gotta stop. And so there are things you can do. Plus, you want to be really good about taking blood pressure medication if that applies to you. And
Mhm.
another caveat, and this probably relates a lot to your work, this isn't a one size fits all recommendation. Some older adults, some people, they have a different blood pressure situation. So, with any of these, you want to make sure it's the right thing for you to do, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, because probably sometimes, Josette, I bet you're not talking to patients about reducing their blood pressure.
That's
You're
right.
just hoping it's going to be, within a reasonable range. Is that
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. It is very contextual. It is specific to an individual's situation and their other medical problems and what else they have going on. So absolutely blood pressure goals should be individualized to each
Yeah.
person. But having said that, on the whole, many of us may not even be aware we have high blood pressure because you
Yes.
don't necessarily feel it at
Mm-mm.
all until it's dangerously high. So just
Yeah.
even periodically checking it and
Checking.
checking in with your primary care provider on the numbers that you're getting, and then you can create that individualized plan. But it's such a sneaky thing because
Yeah.
I think a lot of Americans have it and don't know it either.
Hmm. I think you're right. I think you're right. Um, Thank you for that. The next one we have is managing diabetes. So, type 2 diabetes can be a risk factor in terms of having challenges with cognitive impairment later in life for people with type 2 diabetes. So, very similar, a lot of overlap here with high blood pressure, that eating healthier. With this one, it's often looking at the glycemic index. If you're not familiar with that, look it up. There's high glycemic foods where they're like, boom, they go in really fast and furious into your bloodstream and produce glucose, right? It's glucose. And that can be a bit of a challenge over time. So really looking at, are there tweaks that people can make to have a nice and low and steady kind of glucose situation. Or some people are doing keto diets. It's not necessarily that we need to be on a keto diet, but we do want to be really careful about reducing our risk of type 2 diabetes, or if we have type 2 diabetes, doing what we need to try to keep those numbers within a healthy range if possible. And again, physical activity. There was a very interesting article in the New York Times. I don't know if you read this. They were talking about how physical activity after you eat can be a positive thing around glucose metabolism. Even just a quick walk,
Mhm.
they showed. Now, this is a small study, so
Mhm.
it's not necessarily going to stand up, but I thought it was very interesting to see the relationship between just even a walk and eating and blood
Mhm.
sugar. Have you
Mhm.
heard that before?
I had not, but I wanted to piggyback and highlight that importance of physical activity, which treats
Mhm.
multiple things. So,
It does, yeah.
increasing your physical activity, something's better than nothing.
Mhm.
Aerobic is ideal, but
Mhm.
physical activity can help you better manage your diabetes and your blood pressure and lower your risk of cognitive decline. So it's kind of, it's,
It's 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 as close to a magic pill as you're gonna get,
yes,
right?
it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So next up, Josette, what's
We,
the
yeah, we have eating right.
yeah.
So, eating healthier foods, as you were talking about, absolutely can help with diabetes management. Even if you don't have diabetes, eating a healthy diet,
Mhm,
which I think, as most of us know, is, more vegetables, fruits, fibers, leaner meats and proteins, less things and salt, processed and fats. I think most of us kind of can distinguish between healthy and unhealthy foods, but making those choices,
mhm,
prioritizing healthy foods can really make a difference. Again, for multiple things: diabetes, blood pressure, weight
mhm,
control. Um, and I would say the type of diet is, again, should be very individualized to your situation, what other medical conditions you might have, your level of physical activity, what you're able to do. So types of diets, can vary by the person, but in general, making the choice to eat, choose fresh and natural and healthy whole foods, whole grains, is always a good choice.
mhm. I always like the outer edge of the grocery store. That's one of the things I was taught when, and the next one is maintaining a healthy weight. When I've worked on losing weight, they say stick to the outside edge of the store because if you notice, now I don't know if this is true everywhere, but it tends to be the fresh foods are around the edge and the processed is in the middle.
I did not know
Uh,
that.
yeah, see if it's true for your grocery store. But
It is
when I went to
true.
Safeway, I was like, oh yeah, they're right.
Yes. The
Um,
produce, the produce is kind of front and center on the
mhm,
outside. That is
yep.
true.
And
Ah,
then you'll have the meats and fish and dairy and yeah. So anyway, weight does appear to be a factor, and so working to have a healthy weight is something that is not only good for your body, good for your heart, but potentially good for your brain, as well. And we're not talking extremes here. Even losing 5 or 10 pounds can have an impact. So if you're like me, I mean, this has been part of my life, my whole life is trying to stay within a healthy weight. And so it can be a challenge, absolutely, but it's you do the best you can, try to make healthy choices and addressing that as well as you can. It does not need to be something drastic in order to have a benefit for your
mhm,
brain health,
mhm,
but
mhm,
yeah, we know that the if the higher levels too. So if I'm overweight, I have a slightly higher risk. If I'm obese, it's even higher. And if I'm very obese, then it can be even greater impact on brain health. So
mhm,
we know that the amount of extra weight plays a factor too.
mhm,
You've
mhm.
seen this too?
I have, and one of the aspects of, I think, more successful weight loss strategies is trying to not go it alone and have
Ah,
somebody, a friend or somebody, do that journey with you, or that
yeah,
you can be accountable to, whether it's just tracking your diet or somebody to exercise with.
yeah,
Getting someone involved with you can make it fun, and it promotes that accountability that sometimes
yeah.
all of us need.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had coaches over the years and a really good coach who understands you and can kind of push you when you need it is
Mhm.
really really helpful.
Exactly.
So we have one last number 10. What's
All
number 10
right.
on our list of healthy habits?
Number 10 is sleep, and
There we go.
focuses on sleeping well, which actually can become quite difficult as we age for a lot of different reasons. But good sleep is important for heart health, again, and brain health also. And it's been so interesting to watch the studies evolve over time about making the connection between sleep and your brain function. And so, I would say these tips focus around really promoting good sleep practices. These lists promoting good sleep hygiene are easy to find on the internet, and they promote sort of regular behaviors like establishing a fixed bedtime, avoiding caffeine. Some of them are common sense, And some of them are really hard to do, like not looking at your phone or watching TV in bed and so on and so forth. So I think the most important thing here is again raising awareness of how important sleep is to our brain health. We might know that in acute setting where if we kind of stay up all night or we don't sleep very well for some particular event or reason, the next day or 2 days later we're really foggy and groggy and stuff. If you do that chronically, that definitely has an impact on your brain. It's a cumulative effect. And so really being mindful and trying to create a good sleep hygiene is so important.
That's such a good one, and a really great way to end our list. I think today, because there are things with each of these, right, that we've talked about where you can make some changes, some choices that have the potential to have a positive impact. And so, little change here, little change there, and it just all adds up.
It
So,
does.
Dr. Rivera, thank you so much for being here today. It was a true pleasure. Thank you for your work on Dementia Care Aware and with all your patients. We're so great. You are such an asset to UCSF, but really to the community, helping people who many times can't get out and don't get the care they need. So we're so grateful to have you here today. I hope everybody's learned something and that you maybe added a couple more resolutions for 2024. We are here to help you. We'll be doing it, right? We're going to do our
That's
own.
right. I'm going to walk the walk and walk.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you all. We'll see you again next month. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Josette.